Wow. I mean, it's very much quite interesting, and I think it's very much relatable because I think one of the mistakes that we do as people, we think, okay, if my English is not good enough, then I'm not good enough, or I'm not going to speak English because my English is not good, you know. Therefore, it's like, I'm going to hang around with people that only speak my language, because if I speak English, then people are going to judge me. And what I'm hearing from you is like the importance of like surrounding yourself. The implementation is about having people around you that are going to say, nope, this is not how you use the word. This is how you use the word.
Yeah.
You know, it's people that are going to tell you. But if you like you surround yourself with people that only speak the language that you're familiar with,
100%.
you will never improve. So I think like, you know, you talk about the importance of like listening to podcasts, you know, having like debates and so on. But I think also the implementation part, I think it has a lot to do with like who you hang around with.
100%.
Because those particular people that you hang around with are the ones that are going to guide you. They're going to give you the feedback that you spoke about.
100%.
You know? And I think if you have anyone that just have best interest at heart for you, they're going to tell you, no, this you don't use is not cognizant.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
So it's like they're going to tell you exactly what the word is and how it sounds.
Yep.
You know, whether people laugh, I think if someone laughs, you'll know that, okay, it means I'm wrong here.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like feedback can come in any way. It can come from people laughing or someone just coming to you and just, you know, correcting you, like, you know, in a right way. So I think it's quite interesting. Someone, let's say someone's going for an interview, which is one of the questions that, you know, we got from our viewers. I'm going for an interview and I mean, I'm an expert, you know, I've got a degree in this particular thingy, but then I just don't know. I'm nervous about how I sound on an interview.
Yes, sir.
You know, I've got performance anxiety, I've got nerves. What would you advise them for them? How should people prepare for an interview?
Yeah. And this is probably one of my favorite questions because I really love the art of getting inside of an interview because you really get to showcase what you have in your mind, right? It's like, I'm brilliant, I've got all of these qualifications, and an interview is an opportunity for you to showcase that. And perhaps that's the first pillar that I want to foreground. We tend to think, and I think school has caused this, our relationship to questions, Mhlengi, is terrible. Whenever you ask someone a question, even if it's a conversation, oh, what do you think? People are often, hey, me, why? And it's because in school, how questions were framed, where I typically say there are three things. The first one is when the teacher asked a question in class, you had to have the right answer in order for you to win. If you had the wrong answer, it's either you got, depending on the school you went to, you got a hiding, you got hit on the hand, or you got laughed at, or you just got shamed for getting the wrong answer. And so that then, when people think about questions, they're like, if I don't have the right answer, then I shouldn't answer. Yeah. And the second thing is, they were timed, those questions in class. Teacher says 1 + 1, then we all need to put our hands up. And if you don't have your hand up, then you're going to be picked on. So you need to answer within a specific time. Then the third one is we frame those as you're being picked on. You were typically asked a question so as to you're exposed. It's not for you to share your knowledge, it's not for you to share your insight, but I'm asking you this question because I need to know that you know the right answer. I need to know that you've been listening to me. So whenever we hear us being asked a question, we think, oh my goodness, is this a trick question? Am I going to be caught out? So naturally, our relationship to questions is that it must be the right answer, it must be within a particular time frame, and I must not get exposed by it. And so this hinders how we relate to questions. And if you think about a job interview, it's also framed the same way, right? It's like you need to give the right answer. And the reality is that's not true. You need to give the answer that's true to you. If you're asking me, Thabani, how do you build an AI agent? If I don't know how to build an AI agent, the right answer there is that I haven't had experience in building AI agents, but this is what I would do. This is how I would approach that problem, right? When you don't know something, I typically say to people, you must say you don't know, but provide what your approach would be. So because I'm thinking, I need to provide the right answer. Now, as you're asking the question in the interview, I get flustered. I think, oh my goodness, what the hell is an AI agent? Is he talking about call center agents? And because your mind is doing so much processing, the words just won't come out and you get you get stuck. Yeah? So I'm framing those for us to know our attitude when we're going inside of an interview. And you need to be able to systematically overcome these in your mind and think about, how am I going to remove myself from this idea that I need to have the right answer, I need to give it within a particular point or a time frame, and I need to feel I'm not being exposed. Like, they're really trying to understand it's a conversation. They're trying to understand what I know. And then to practically then prepare for an interview, there's a 3S model that I give to people. The first one is, so the 3S model is, you want to think about the story you're going to tell. You want to think about the strategy you're going to take, and you want to think about the state that you're in. Now, this framework is not mine. I've stolen it from Tony Robbins, but I typically apply it when it comes to interviewing. Let's start here with state. If I'm going to a job interview and my interview is at 2, Mhlengi, when I wake up in the morning, it's important that I get myself in a state that's going to be most conducive for that interview. What does that mean? The music I play. I'm not going to play somber, dim, 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 that's going to alter my mood. And this is because I know how much music moves me. So I'll put in music that's going to get me to dance, get me in a jovial mood, get me excited, even if I don't feel excited. But I know that that music is going to get me excited, so I get myself in an excitable mood, right? So that's me fixing my state. On my way to the interview, I'm greeting people. Hey, shop bafo, grand, mocha. Hey, how's it going? Like, I'm chatting to people to get myself in a state. By the time I get to the interview, I'm already opened up, I'm already interactive, I'm already open to the world and to people. Most people, they've got an interview, they sleep the whole day, and then they say nothing before the interview. Then they get inside the interview, and the first word they're saying is in the interview. You're setting yourself up for failure. That's like, you remember those old cars that you need to start the engine, keep it warm until it's able to. That's like you just getting unwarmed up, right? So your state needs to be adjusted, and you can do things to adjust your state. So being interactive, chatting with people, the music you play, and then a practical thing to manage nerves is to exhale deeply. So for a very long time. And the reason why that works, whenever you are relieved, your body naturally gives the sigh. And that's the body giving itself release from tension. And so if you want to give yourself that, you must give yourself the sigh naturally. So that's going to release some of the tension that your body's feeling from being clammed up because of nerves. So sigh externally and then move your body a lot more to get rid of some of that adrenaline. So that's what that interacting with people and engaging with people does. You alter your state so that you're in a state that's conducive to have the interview. Now, this is not going to eliminate the nerves, but it's going to manage them properly. So that's the state. The second one is then the strategy. What do I mean by strategy? You mustn't just say, I'm nervous for the interview, Thabani. Like, what does that mean? What are you nervous about? And when you start having that conversation with yourself, so for instance, for me, with interviews, it's always around accuracy of information and data, because I know that my memory is terrible. So if you ask me to cite a research paper and give you the numbers, I'm going to be like, yay, I don't know. I can, like the study we spoke about earlier, I didn't know the numbers. So I know with accuracy and data, I'm terrible at that. The second thing is I often just worry about is technical things. I'm not the most technical individual, and so I worry about what if they ask a technical question. And then the other thing I often worry about is, it's actually those two main things, but they'll also present themselves differently, right? It won't just, I'll know that I'm worried about they're going to require me to use my memory, and I'm going to struggle with that, and then they're going to ask me something technical. Now I know what I'm scared about in the interview. And then I say, what do I do when they ask me to recall a fact? Okay, this is my strategy. I'm first going to state my short-term memory is terrible, so I might get the numbers wrong here, right? So I've given the preamble,
yeah.
And then I'm going to continue to, and I actually did this when I was citing the stats earlier on. I said I'm going to get the numbers wrong here because I know my short-term memory is terrible, right? So when you know what you're scared of, you can come up with a plan. Now the plan does two things. One, it gives you what to do when you don't know what to do, but secondly, it gives you the impression that I've taken care of my blind spots. And the reality is they hardly happen. Like very minimal of them happen in the room. But if you've planned for it, then at least you know you've got an exit plan for when that thing happens. And in the room, when they ask a technical question, what your body's going to do is going to clamor up, you're going to become anxious. But because you know that these questions make me more nervous than any other question, you then recognize that this is actually going to get me in a different state. And what I'll do, if they're asking me one of those questions, I'll listen for the first time and I'll pause and I'll say, please ask that question again. Right? Because I know the first time I heard it, I got triggered and my body thought fight, flight, freeze. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's that question. So I was hardly listening. So if I pause and I say, please ask the question again, then I'm actually able to listen to what they have to say.
Yeah.
And then another strategy I propose people do is bring a notebook and write questions down. Because when you're in the moment, your mind has a particular, it's got fixed energy that it's got allocated for it to run its processes, memory being one of them. When you're in an anxiety-driven situation or an anxiety-inducing situation, your brain uses some of that energy to deal with the stimulus that's causing the anxiety. And memory is not a priority when you're in trouble. So because I feel threatened in this interview and I feel like if I don't get this right, I'm going to lose, it's like pain aversion. Like my memory then goes on the wayside. And I know because I struggle with memory, I can't rely on my memory in that moment. I can't even rely on my short-term memory. They've asked a question. I don't even trust myself to remember the question they've just asked. So as I step into the interview, I've got a notebook. I'm like, I've got a notebook. I think better when I write things down. So if you see me writing things down, you must just know I'm noting your question and it's helping me think. And just having a notebook as they ask the question, I'm like, oh, okay, so you want to find out what I'll do when there's conflict. Okay, maybe two things. And I'll jot down. So this is my conflict resolution framework that I'll use. Then I'll go, okay, the first thing would be to sit down and talk to the person to understand what's going on. When I've understood what's going on, then I can move to step 2. You know what I mean? So that notebook for me is golden. It's helped me in a lot of interviews. That's one of my strategies. So we've just covered now the state that you're in, you can alter that, then the strategies that you can use. You know what you're scared of. I don't know what you're scared of. But if you're clear about what you're scared of, you can then come up with action plans against those. Then the third one is story. The interview, we typically think, because of school, we need to memorize our answers to tell me about yourself. How do you deal with conflict? But memory is not the point of it because your memory is going to fail you anyway. But what I say is come up with a story. Know what your story is, what the pillars of your story are. And I'm going to give an example of what a story is. When I step into an interview, my story is I'm a servant. So I hardly do things where I'm not useful and effective. So wherever I am, I'll try and serve, I'll try and show up. I figure things out. So throw anything at me and give me some time and I'll figure it out. And I'm also down to get the flag on top of the hill. So if we need to pull all-nighters, if we need to work all weekend, if we need to not sleep, I'm down. So long as there's incentive at the end. Those are the 3 things that I just need to remember. Any question they ask in the interview, when my mind goes blank, I'll revert to one of those 3 stories. So anything they'll say, I'll just say, look, as someone who's committed to serving individuals, this is what I'll do. And if you think about conflict, so how do you deal with conflict? Look, as someone who's committed to serving individuals, because that's the story that I have in my head that I've prepared. Someone who's committed to serving individuals, the first thing we'll try and find out is what happened? And who initiated the conflict? Was it a misunderstanding? How can I serve all parties involved? So I understand what happened. And when I move from what happened, I then think about how can we resolve this without using institutional, like written warnings, dismissals, and things like that. And then I try and see, can we get, like in my mind, all I'm thinking is, how can I serve? How can I serve? How can I serve? How can I serve? Right? In answering that question as I talk the panel through that question. So with every question, if you've got a story and what you've prepared just leaves your mind, just revert back to your story. And with those 3, if you alter your state, you know what strategy you're going to use and you know what story you're going to tell, then interviewing becomes simple. Then maybe a last tip. All they ever ask about in an interview, all questions can be bucketed into what do you do, who do you do it with, and how do you do the thing that you do with those people. Every interview question is about those 3. And if you can be abundantly clear about this is what I do, this is the value that I add, what do I do, who I do it with or who I do it for, this is who I do it, this is who I do it for, and how do I work with those people that I do this thing for when I'm doing it. If you're clear about those things, you've got all of the answers to any interview that you can ever go to.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys were taking notes because that is just amazing. The 3 S's. I think I think the one that struck me the most is the one of like the story, you know, because at the end of the day, it's like everyone is a story,
100%.
you know, and I think the best author of a story is yourself. You know, your own story, you are the best author of that particular story. You know, it's just amazing. And I think, I mean, as a person, I think I've only done like 2 interviews in my life. So I've taken a lot of notes, you know. I think it's fascinating how much is who we are and our own stories and how we get the story across is so important in pretty much everything that we do. You can think about, you can think in interviews about the company which you go with, but if you think about it, as you say, it's also about your story. They want to know you, you know. Fascinating. Are there any books or podcasts or videos or series that you would recommend that would help a person become more confident?
Yeah, so with books, I'm not a big reader. The books that I read are not communication adjacent. So I'm not going to recommend any books because the books that I read are, they're not communication adjacent and they're not going to serve people as far as communication. The podcasts I would recommend for people who want to improve their communication skills there is a podcast by Sis Mhlengi called Unscripted Synergy. If you search on YouTube, Unscripted Synergy, brilliant conversations, practical conversations. Whenever I listen to her podcast, I walk away with something. And I think because there's so many podcasts, and some of them can just be, you hear about good ideas and you're like, yeah, you know, but with hers, I'm like, there's something tangible that I can walk away with here. I really also enjoy Behind the Diary of a CEO. Not just the podcast is good, but they've got a Behind the Diary series where it's like a behind the scenes kind of thing. And the reason why I enjoy that is because it feels less scripted and it feels less performative. Right? And when I say performative, I mean the Behind the Diary, it's almost like it feels like it's more intimate conversations, and it really showcases what kind of life someone leads behind the machinery that is running a company and things like that. And I suggest that for communication because you realize that you're always selling. That's what I took away from that. Like Stephen is always in meetings, he's selling things to his staff, selling things to the people he leads with, he's selling things on stage. He's always persuading, he's always selling, like everywhere he is. Even when he speaks to camera, there's an idea he wants us to buy into. So it gives you a good way to look on the back end of that. And then there's some shows that I've seen that have really influenced how I look at communication. And perhaps one of them is Saving Our Marriage on Netflix. And it's a bit of an obscure one, but I always enjoy a show with someone who is bringing an intervention into someone's life. Because then you get to see how does someone move from uncertainty to action? How does someone move from a place where they're stuck and it's muddy to a place where they've got a bit more clarity? And that show, it's got 2 main psychologists. And the premise of it is they're helping people resolve issues in their marriage. And because I know that one of the biggest breakdowns in marriages is communication, and most importantly, maybe the miscommunication of expectation or even the non-communication of expectations, I knew there would be great communication lessons there. And if you watch how those psychologists take people through the interventions, you see how the importance of communication, and you also get some practical communication tools. You know, I think one of the frameworks that I use for conflict management is sourced directly from that Saving Our Marriage show that's on Netflix. And then just trying to think of other shows that would be very useful. Yeah, and then for me, maybe something that's going to be more useful at an individual level is I say to people, try and find the speakers that you admire. So people, when you watch them speak, you're like, oh, that person is so brilliant. And then watch them deliver speeches on stage, watch their interviews, like binge watch that individual. And the reason why that's useful is because, remember earlier on we were speaking about the levers of confidence, and one of them is observation. The reason why we're drawn to specific people, Mhlengi, is because we see a bit of ourselves in them, and we also see a bit of them in us. So for instance, when we start the course, I typically ask people, who's your favorite speaker? And there will be a myriad of speakers, of different people. But there's a direct correlation between your favorite speaker and how you see yourself being effective in communication. So an example would be, there are people who admire Barack Obama as a speaker. They're like, he's the best speaker that I've ever seen. And then there will be people who will say, no, but Vusi is better. And it's not who's better, it's who do you connect and resonate more with. People who are typically lower energy, who are more deliberate, who are more, they're not as dynamic with their body language, or they're not as loud with their vocal volume, will resonate with the Barack Obama, because they see a bit of themselves in Barack, and they see a bit of him in them, because they're like, yeah, this guy is, he's quiet, he's got a really powerful energy, he's very charismatic, but he's not loud, and he's not big, and he's not dynamic. A different person will say, no, Baba, it's Vusi, because he's loud and he's big and he's got these massive gestures. Or a Tony Robbins, who's someone who's also dynamic. But it's because you see your energy in them and you see their energy in you. So you connect and you resonate with them. So whoever your speaker is, try and find them in interviews, in speaking. If they've got a YouTube channel, even better. And then what you want to do is to look at how they're using their body language, their voice, and their eye contact. And then start incorporating some of those things in your life. So for instance, for me, Tony Robbins is probably the person that I admire, whose body language I admire the most. Like, he's comfortable spreading his hands like that, and he's a big guy. He's comfortable spreading his hands, he's comfortable making these large gestures. And it's from him that I started seeing, what gestures am I comfortable with, given that I'm a dynamic speaker, I'm really energetic, and I really like to get a room going, and that's my style of speaking, versus, for instance, Mthetho Nyati. Mthetho Nyati doesn't use his hands a lot, but is a brilliant communicator. He's very deliberative. When he'll speak, he's got this, he's regal. He'll say, yeah, Mhlengi, thank you for having me. So how we thought about transforming ESCOM was A, B, C, like very deliberative, not as punchy and dynamic. So find your person and start gravitating towards them. Then a lot of people say, but that's imitation, Thabani, you're trying to tell us to be like other people. And I say that's how we learn, unfortunately. How you learn to walk. You didn't just think, how am I going to get up here? You had to watch people walk. Yeah. You had to watch your parents, your caregivers. Okay, so one foot next to the next. Okay, then you stand up and you try that out. You fall on your bum. You're like, oh man, that didn't work. Then you start. The same thing with talking. Right? People will say, you sound so much like your dad when you speak. You sound so much like your uncle. Because those are the people you studied in order to do this thing. Those are the people that you learned and you gleaned from. So the reality is, we learn by observation. We learn by trial and error. And if you take observation and trial and error, you observe, you implement, then you see, where am I comfortable with that thing that I've learned? And you pick up different things from different people, and then you enhance yourself, and then you build yourself. Then you start finding your own voice. You're like, this is my sweet spot. This is where I'm comfortable. This is how I want to deliver. But in the stage where you are still uncertain, then lean on other people. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. Lean on other people until you get to a point where you're like, I'm comfortable now. I can then fully activate my skill and myself and use communication as a tool to showcase my identity.
Whoa. Oh my word. Oh my word. I think it's quite interesting how by observing someone else you can be better. And what I like is that, like, someone would say, you don't want to imitate them, you don't want to be them, but you want to take whatever that you can help you to become better in that particular space. Then I think maybe if you have like 3 or 4 individuals that you admire, you can pick a thing or two from each. 100%. And then whatever characteristic that maybe resonates with you, you adopt those, and then they make you a better person.
100%.
Quote.
My favorite quote, man, and this one really hit me like a ton of bricks the first time I heard it. It says, we act in accordance with who we think we are and who we think we're not. So anything and everything we do, we always run it through the filter. Am I the kind of person who ... And I see this so evident in the work that I do. People will step into the practice, people will step into the course saying, Thabani, I'm shy. I'm introverted. I don't like speaking. My English is terrible. I didn't go to these schools. I didn't my family is quiet. I don't like I'm not an extrovert, right? They'll say all of these things that relate to their identity. And because of those things, it means every time they're in an instance where they need to speak in public, they first run that code, right? So let's say you're in a social space, then you're like, oh, there's so-and-so, I really want to talk to them. But immediately you're like, no, but I'm shy, but I'm not someone who speaks to people in that way. You've got a question in your head, you're like, oh, I want to say something, and then in your mind you're like, oh no, but I'm shy, but I'm quiet, I can't answer this question. And it's that identity that's holding you back. It's a thing it's informing your decision making. And I say to people, try and take on something that's a lot more empowering. An example would be, if you believe yourself to be shy, then say, I'm learning how to speak. I'm learning how to share my views. I'm learning how to externalize my thoughts. Or I always speak about things I'm passionate about, which is what caused me to be able to speak more and speak about the work that I do. Because I was like, yes, I've gained the skill of communication, but I don't want to put it out there for the world to see. Like, it's good that I'm impacting lives on a one-on-one basis, on an in-person basis, but never on social media. But then immediately I was like, but I'm passionate about what I do. And I speak about things that I'm passionate about. And I need for people to find out about the thing that I'm doing. So it was through that I was able then to eventually do it, right? The same thing with even putting this into being a business. I was like, I really love how I can impact people's lives and the value that I bring, but I can't do this full time, man. I need to take care of my job, and I need to. But then I was like, and I can also take some of that time and dedicate all of it to this. Imagine how much of an impact I can make then. And because I'm someone who's passionate about making an impact, therefore I need to then go into this thing. So try and find things that are not disempowering. If you being shy disempowers you, try and think about a different frame. Try and think about a thing that's going to empower you to speak, because that self-identity, it limits us so much. Because and I try to break it down insofar as saying, even if someone says to me, Thabani, I'm shy, I'm introverted, I say, you're lying. They say, what do you mean? I'm like, when you wake up in the morning and you talk to when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, are you shy? How embarrassed do you feel then? Oh, I'm not embarrassed. Okay, so that's one instance where you're not shy. When you're speaking to loved ones and people you're used to and people you're comfortable with, how shy are you there? But Thabani, I'm used to them, I'm shy. Then I'm like, then you're not shy. There are certain situations and circumstances that cause you to be shy. Now, all you need to solve for is, how can I not be shy in those circumstances and those situations? And for all of us, there are those circumstances and those situations. If I were to step outside and you were to pull my pants down, that's an embarrassing thing. I would be shy. Of course, I'd think, oh my goodness, it's so embarrassing. So that's a circumstance and a situation that causes me to be shy. But then I can also solve for, how can I get myself out of that? How can I get to myself to, Mhlengi puts my pants down and he thinks that he's being funny. And I just own it. I'm like, yeah, just take the pants, I'll walk around naked kind of thing. And that's what I'm asking people to do. But if you know that in meetings I become so shy, Thabani, like I never share my thoughts. What about that situation is causing you to be shy? Oh, maybe it's because I think if I say something, I'm going to say something stupid. Okay, then write down what you're going to say before you say it. Oh, that's simple. Yes. Write it down, unmute, say it. And then you can even go as far as to ask, does that make sense? And if people say yes, then ta-da, you've got a situation where you've said something that's not stupid. Do you know what I mean? So it's asking, what conditions do I want to change and how do I practically change those conditions? And the more we break these things down, I'm saying that the less intimidating they become. Because it's in the ambiguous where you feel like, oh man, it's an impossible task. This mountain is so big. But it's in the specific that you find solutions. If I say in a job interview, I struggle to communicate because there's a lot riding on this job interview, and if I don't get it, then I might not have work. Okay, then apply for more things. Because if you've got a bigger pool to decide from, then that one interview doesn't have all of your eggs in it, right? So like, you can be practical about it. Oh, it's the technical questions that freak me out. Then, before you answer a technical question, tell them, I'm not the biggest technical person in the world, so I might get this wrong, but this is what I'll do. You've practically solved for your fear of technical things, right? So it's being practical about these things that get people to be able to address them and tick them off like a to-do list, because that's the best way to improve in my mind.
Wow. I think there's a quote that says perception is reality. And I think like who we perceive ourselves to be, is everything.
Yeah.
And I think, as you say, like the more you expose yourself to environments, the better you become.
Yes, sir.
The more the narrative will change. If you talk to more people who say, you know what, does this make sense? What I'm saying now, does it make sense? What do you think this particular question is about? The more you talk to those individuals, the more you're gonna get a feedback, and that's what's gonna help you improve.
Yep.
What I get from this conversation is about the importance of doing more.
Yes.
More interviews,
Yes.
more preparation. Speak to more people. It's about the more you do, the better you become.
It's by action that we become. It's by action that we become. A writer doesn't become a writer by not writing. You write a ton, you're a writer. You speak a ton, you're a speaker. It's by action that we become. The more you do something, the more you become it. It's not, so you put yourself in situations that require you to be confident, you then become confident. You don't first become confident and then you do. You first do and then you become. And
Wow.
people switch those around. So action is the biggest lever for especially with communication.
Wow. Thabani, so we are winding down the conversation now. Where do people find you?
People can find me on social media. So all social media platforms, Thabani Mtsi. And the surname is MTSI, and the Thabani is spelled with an H, Thabani. So Thabani Mtsi on all social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, not so much, but I should get better at that because I need to act. And TikTok is where they can find me. And then they can also reach out via email. So info@thabanimtsi.co.za. They can reach out and we can have a chat around how we can serve them, become better communicators. And my commitment, Mhlengi, is to helping as many people as we possibly can, because I think communication really is the thing, and we spoke about it earlier on. Being able to communicate allows you to be able to express yourself. There's no greater gift in this earth than being able to be yourself. And if you can't express yourself, then you struggle to be yourself. And communication is the thing that could get you there. And for me, the more people who can get across that line, the better.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys enjoyed this particular podcast and this particular episode as much as we did. And please do comment and also follow Thabani Mtsi on Instagram, Thabani Mtsi on TikTok and LinkedIn. Thabani, thank you very much for being our guest today, and we wish you all the best.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to serve.
Thank you.
Oh, man. That is so fun.
Cut.
Bro.
Yo,